Is the CR system in Dungeons & Dragons broken? No, it's not. It functions exactly as it's supposed to. Let's talk about that. I've done a lot of videos talking about how to balance encounters. And realistically speaking, the idea of balance, first thing we have to talk about when it comes to CR in Dungeons & Dragons. Balance has nothing to do with fairness. It has to do with what I'm trying to accomplish when I put an encounter in front of my parties. You may balance thematically, meaning I put monsters, encounters out into the world for my party to encounter, and then it's their job to decide, should I run away, should I attack, should I converse? As long as you're telegraphing as a dungeon master, fantastic. The other way to balance an encounter is, well, I want to put something challenging here. I want to put something in front of my players that they should be able to beat. I want to give them a challenge. I want to make this feel like an epic drawn-out battle. We're generally not balancing to the mechanics of the game. What we're balancing to is a part of a story we want to tell. And so what CR is a guideline to help you do that. But balancing in itself has nothing to do with fairness. It has everything to do with what story we're trying to tell. Sometimes it's a story of the world is dangerous. Sometimes it's you can take on anything the world throws at you as long as you think of it enough. As a dungeon master, you get to decide what balance is. No one else. And don't let them convince you otherwise. The reason CR actually works in Dungeons & Dragons is because what it's intended to do. CR is a guideline to tell you how difficult an encounter should be. Now, whether you use CR or whether you use optional rules, all of those things have factors. If you have a party that's loaded full of melee and they have not a single magic weapon, and you put a monster in front of them that's immune to non-magic weapons, then what you're going to look at is an incredibly difficult encounter. CR is a guideline that has to do with defense and offense. It actually balances HP, AC, saving throws, 2-hit, average damage per round, and saving throws that they get a hit out. Basically, difficulties, DCs. That is the balancing act. And I'm going to actually do an entire video on CRs by themselves, but the reality is it's a guideline for you as a dungeon master to be able to flip through the book. And so anyone that tells you CR is broken, they're losing the idea of what CR is. A party of, they says, well, if I build an encounter of 2 CR1 creatures, that's hard for this level party. Well, if that level party is totally tricked out and multi-classed and basically using divine smite, and they're using cohesive tactics that actually boost each other up, and they have magical weapons with, magical one-use potions and scrolls, and well, that will change how powerful that party is. CR is a guideline for the optimal party with the correct amount of stuff that then gives you the CR. So CR is not broken, it just has a purpose. Another reason CR is not broken, and it does exactly what it's intended to do, is that CR teaches us how to read monsters, how to quickly find monsters, how to categorize monsters. Now, are all CR1 creatures equal? No, not even close. In fact, there's a lot of inconsistency with CR in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Therefore, yes, I guess technically it could be broken, but it's to give you an idea of who to pit against who. And do they always follow the right guidelines? No, they don't. In fact, a CR1 monster from a defense status should have 71 hit points with an armor class of, I believe, 13. That's a CR1 monster. The thing is, most CR1 monsters have half that amount of hit points, but they'll have a higher AC. Now, that monster should only also kick out, I think, 7 damage per round. You don't quote me on this, but then if you have a higher damage per round, multi-attack, its hit points drop. Well, depending on your party, depends on how much damage can they do, how much damage can they take. This swing doesn't balance well, especially at lower levels. And then when you get to higher levels and your party can burst damage and work together as a team, well, then CR doesn't seem to match either. That's the thing, is that CR is a guideline to tell you what to use. Its actual balancing mechanic is not effective. It's for dungeon masters to use as a tool. So if you think of that, if CR is simply a tool, as opposed to a balancing mechanic, it works wonderfully. Final thing about challenge rating when it comes to monsters in Dungeons & Dragons. Who cares? I don't care if you balance for theme. I don't care if you balance for encounters or challenging encounters. Play the game. Put things in front of your party and don't be so rigid in the rules that if you put something that's too hard for your party to beat, either one, if you didn't know it was going to be that hard, be willing to fudge. Be willing to somehow give the party a chance to get away. Because when you stick to hey, I built a balanced encounter, y'all should have been able to counter this, and it TPKs your party, well, that's one thing. A lot of people will say, well, when I put CR that's equivalent to my party, it doesn't, it's not a hard challenge. Well, CR is also based upon 6 encounters per day. And so when you really dig into the rules, you'll understand that CR, challenge rating, I've said it 1,000 times in this video by now, someone's going to point it out and make fun of me, really comes down to using it as a tool for you as the dungeon master. Don't use it as an end-all, be-all balancing act. Don't say you should have been able to do this, because a new party, a new group of new players is going to find 2 CR2 creatures much more difficult than a party of veterans. You could probably remove a level from those veterans versus the new party, and they will still be able to do fine, knowing that they're up against something big and bad. And that's the other thing. As players, we start to learn monsters. So whether we know it or not, we know that a monster or difficult, this could be a difficult encounter, or it may not be, but that influences and affects how many resources we put into play. Even the best role players in the world may not do that. And you got to think about that. As a character, would I unload on this thing? Am I scared of this thing? Would I start casting spells? We're thinking of the fact that, hey, I could have more encounters this day before my next long rest. So that in fact directly affects the effectiveness of CR, and you as a dungeon master telegraphing, is there another danger after this? Am I going to be able to get a rest after this? All of those things have a factor. So CR is a guideline if you follow the rules of encounters. The problem is, as dungeon masters, we have our own rules. We have our own things that we're trying to encounter. So use it as a guideline and figure out the best way to use those encounters to tell the story you want to tell. Balanced encounters or not, it's all about the story. And always, we will see you next time, guys. And thank you so much for joining. Like, subscribe, comment below, and we'll see you next time.